A kids coding camp is suing critics for speaking out against them. This is a coding camp named WhiteHat Jr. They're one of India's biggest startups, and they're in hot water. In response to mounting criticism, they're suing one man named Pradeep Punia, I hope I got that name right, for $2.7 million in damages. Okay, they're accusing of defamation, all sorts of stuff, which we're gonna get into. But they say, look, it's not because the guy criticized us, it's because he criticized us unfairly. According to them, legitimate, honest, fact-based criticism is truly welcome. Well, good, guys, so they should have no problem with this video right here, because we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to explain what's been going on, because I've been looking into this, and what I found is truly astonishing. And we're going to take it from the beginning, okay? So first of all, let's talk code camps real quick. They're giant right now. It's a gold rush. Well, rather, coding is a gold rush, and the coding camps are the people selling shovels. There's a lot of money in selling shovels. A lot of these coding camps, they're charging thousands of dollars to teach coding, and they basically hang an Apple or Google job in front of their applicants and say, well, isn't it worth it to pay us thousands of dollars to get this education? Now, one of the things that should be noted is there's a lot of free coding educations out there, like freecodecamp.org and many others. But some people want to go down the paid route because they think they're going to get a better education. WhiteHat Jr. is the latest of many coding camps offering such a thing, but what makes them different is who their target audience is. Rather than targeting people in continuing education or people who are in their 20s, they're targeting children, literally. Like 6 years old is where they start, up to age 18, and they make some pretty astounding claims. Here's one of their ads right here to give you an idea of the type of advertising they do. They say, space technology is the #1 future career for kids. Your kid can learn to code a spaceship in just 46 minutes. Start free coding and a space tech trial. Okay, first of all, it's not free. It's about $200 a month. And obviously, it's ridiculous that someone can code a spaceship in 46 minutes, right? But they continue with this idea, basically telling you that actually the fact that your kid's so young doesn't mean that they're hindered from learning things like AI and ML. It actually means they may learn it faster. And you can see that in their curriculum where they show you how much your kid's going to be learning. And they tell you things like that your kid will get a game developer certificate before they've been through 8 classes of coding. So you can have your 6-year-old going through 7 classes and all of a sudden he's coding up Candy Crush and League of Legends. And this has led many people to criticize their overly simplified and almost dreamlike promises they're making to parents that their kid's going to be the next Bill Gates. And ads like this reinforce the point. They're saying that you can make a $1.2 million salary at age 13. I mean, talk about selling parents a dream. You're saying, hey, pay us $200 a month, and your kid can potentially be working at Google, it's obviously Google's campus, and be making a $1.2 million salary. And this is where a lot of the criticism is coming from, because not only did they suggest this as a possibility, they actually said that one of their students had achieved this. Meet Wolf Gupta, an example that WhiteHat Jr. was using. Apparently, he learned AI to get a $1.2 million job, and he's 13 at the time when he did it. Now, here's where the cracks first start to appear, because later on in different ads, their story started to change. Because over here, we have Wolf Gupta learning computers at age 9. So he actually learned it quicker in the new ad. And he's making 150 crores, which is actually not just $1.2 million. It's actually $20 million. So he's younger and making way more money. And here in another ad, the story changes again, where 9-year-old Ryan, we change it from Wolf Gupta, learned computers to earn 150 crores from Google Video while other kids at his age were surfing YouTube videos. So here they are promoting a story that appears to be false, and there's no disclaimer about, hey, this is a fictional story, it's aspirational, whatever, nothing. They're saying, this is one of our students, this really happened. Now, this is where our first critic gets involved. Pradeep Punia started to call them out for this predatory behavior. And he said, look, you guys are false advertising to parents. You're not telling the truth about this Wolf Gupta character. A lot of your stories are fake. And he starts publishing a bunch of videos about it. The problem with that, WhiteHat Jr. doesn't like that. They don't want negative press. So what do? Rather than engaging with the criticism and saying, look, guys, we messed up, we lied, instead, they start copyright striking the man. Here's this guy. He got 5 copyright strikes in a row from WhiteHat Jr. and the company that bought them out. Now, they copyright strike this guy so many times that he's had to create 3 different YouTube channels where he keeps uploading criticisms of WhiteHat Jr. Now, already this looks really bad for WhiteHat Jr., who claims that they're open to criticism, right? Remember that? At the beginning of the video, keep giving us feedback to improve. Legitimate, honest, fact-based criticism is truly welcome. So what's the problem? Well, they claim that our critic here is lying and making illegal breaches that damage real lives. Now, what are they talking about? Well, to find out, let's go to the lawsuit. First thing to know about this lawsuit, it's 820 pages long. The second thing you should know about it is in the lawsuit, they admit that a lot of the criticism is true. This Wolf Gupta character doesn't exist. It was a lie. According to WhiteHat Jr. themselves, their own lawsuit, it was an imaginary child who the plaintiffs christened Wolf Gupta. So it's imaginary. It didn't happen. But nowhere in that thing did it say it. They were saying, hey, we got this student. He made millions of dollars with our classes. Oh, but actually he doesn't exist. Didn't you guys know he's imaginary? Didn't you know that? No, nobody knew it. So they admit in the lawsuit that that is true, but then call out our guy for saying that plaintiff one had murdered Wolf Gupta when they withdrew their advertisements. They say the defendant's posts quickly turned sinister subsequent to the withdrawal of the advertisements. To this, I have to say, obviously, this is a joke. When you say, oh yeah, they murdered Wolf Gupta, that's obviously a joke that the guy's making. Nobody's gonna construe that as literally they killed a kid. So that's a super bad faith interpretation. Obviously, he's just being tongue-in-cheek with the fact that suddenly this mysterious kid who's your poster child of success just mysteriously vanishes. He's saying they murdered him. It's a joke. But then the other giant allegation here is that the defendant hacked into their Slack communications things. Do you see that? Even hacked into plaintiff number 2's internal business communications platform. And this is actually where things become pretty complicated and things get kind of muddy. Because it's true that Pradeep Punia published to his Twitter and his YouTube channel multiple Slack communications from this company, but what's unclear is how he got them. Some people have said that they accidentally left their Slack public. Some people have said that he obtained a CEO password. And some people have said it was a whistleblower that released this to the public. It's not clear how he got it. In my opinion, obviously, hacking isn't okay. But if it's a whistleblower that came to him and released these images to him, I think that's a different thing altogether to release those into the public if they're of public interest. And after reading them, I definitely think they are. I'm not saying that any ends justify the means here of how you get them, but now that they're out in the public, it's interesting that the fact that they're calling them out for hacking their platform and releasing them into the public domain, they're almost confirming that these leaks are indeed real and valid. Because obviously if they were fake, they would say, oh, he photoshopped these false things. Instead, their argument is he took confidential communications and published them, which again, I'm not defending it because we don't know how he got those, but what these Slack communications reveal now that they're in the public is pretty damning. I'm gonna have to censor out a lot here, just FYI. So if you see it blurred, it's because I'm trying to protect, employee information here. But basically we see a series of screenshots of employees seeming to be reporting criticisms from various Twitter accounts, from all sorts of things, contradicting their idea that they're open to criticism and it's only, bad faith criticism that they don't like because they're just reporting everything. They even report a depressed employee who says exploitation of teachers and employees at work in WhiteHat Jr., 15 hours working every day, 7 days a week. Team leader warned to terminate if raised voice. Feels frustrated, depressed, suicidal. The internal Slack says, can we report the tweet also? Another one is talking about a negative video and they say, don't reply, just get the video down. So they don't want to engage with criticism. They're not interested in that. They just want to censor voices. But worst of all, I think, is this communication, which came from their CEO, okay? Somebody raised a concern and they posted to a chat where a parent or some kind of would-be client is asking about an ad that was published where a 13-year-old is becoming the CEO of a face detecting app. And they're saying one of my students is interested in to see the app made by that student. Any ideas how to check that? So they're saying, where's this app that you claim was made by one of your students? And the CEO of WhiteHat Jr. is saying, need to create that app now, which is so Disgusting. I mean, really internalize that. They've advertised this thing. They've created this whole narrative that this was done by a kid. It can be done by your kid. You should pay us $200 a month because, this is reasonable expectations, or at least this is what can be expected. And this guy's saying that when somebody asks for proof, he seems to be implying at once that it doesn't exist, and that if it was to exist, it'd have to be coded by a professional engineer. To which one of their employees responds that a person can create and send it as promised, and they ask, do you want me to? Another employee responds, I can create the app. I cannot get a 13-year-old to create the company around it, at least not now. Which, of course not. And so they're saying internally that they know they can't get a 13-year-old to do this. And the CEO responds that we will. This is so bad and demonstrates a pattern of behavior. So Wolf Gupta was not the only one that they did this with. It wasn't just one offhand thing. Multiple examples they use about, these kids are coding these crazy apps and your kids can too. They are fabricating these narratives. So it's this weird thing, right? Because in the lawsuit, the Slack channel, like the Slack channel discussion, is kind of a poison chalice for WhiteHat Jr. Because on the one hand, they have a point. Punia should not have released private communications. It depends how he got them. If he got them through a whistleblower, then he didn't hack them. I mean, that's just not true. It just depends. But the fact that they admit that these Slack communications exist and they seem to be verifying that they are real is an even worse look for the company than anything that they've admitted publicly. So that's where the story is now. It's not believable that WhiteHat Jr. is only going after people who are, being unfair to them. They are silencing all criticism that comes their way. It's very clear from the messages that they're reporting anything and everything that can be construed as criticism at all. You can be sure that they'll report this video, they'll report any video that talks about them. And frankly, that's the part that bothers me the most. Because in order to root out corruption, scams, to tell the frauds from the people who are honest, you have to have that criticism. You have to have the open exchange, even when it's sort of intense and it can be loaded with some pretty heavy language. You have to have it. You have to have it for the people who are buying into this stuff. This is a multi-million dollar company, and it needs to be exposed to criticism to see if it holds up. And right now, they're not doing that. My hope is, as always, that the truth comes out. Thanks for watching, and we may do a follow-up on this as more information comes out. See you next time.
And don't forget to smash like and subscribe. Thank you.